Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. All glories to our revered speaker for today, His Grace JIVA TATTVA Prabhu, and all glories to the assembled Vaishnavi devotees. Devotees, we thank you all for being here as always. Today is Friday, the last day of the busy week. And we are fortunate we have His Grace JIVA TATTVA Prabhu sharing the Srimad Bhagavatam with us today. I think we have two verses today, 15 and 16, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll put the verse on the screen and Prabhuji, you take it over from here. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please join us for the invocation mantra as the screen is being shared. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiriyet Shravataam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtanaha Hridayantastho Hya Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhatsatam Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatir Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavti Nashtikhi. Hare Krishna. Please join us in the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, chapter 7, verse 15 and 16. Vidur Uvacha Sanchinna Samshayo Mahayam Tava Suktasina Vibho Ubhayatrapi Bhagavan Manome Sampradhavati. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace S.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vidur said, O powerful sage, my Lord, all my doubts about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities have now been removed by your convincing words. My mind is now perfectly entering into them. Purport. The science of Krishna, or the science of God and the living entities, is so subtle that even a personality like Vidur had to consult persons like the sage Maitreya. Doubts about the eternal relationship of the Lord and the living entity. Doubts about the eternal relationship of the Lord and the living entities are created by mental speculators in different ways. But the conclusive fact is that the relationship of God and the living entity is one of the predominator and the predominated. The Lord is the eternal predominator, and the living entities are eternally predominated. Real knowledge of this relationship entails reviving the lost consciousness to this standard, and the process for such revival is devotional service to the Lord. By clearly understanding from authorities like the sage Maitreya, one can become situated in real knowledge, and the distributed mind can thus be fixed on the progressive path. Hare Krishna, let's cover the next verse, English translation and purport. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, S.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O learned sage, your explanations are very good, as they should be. Disturbances to the conditioned soul have no other basis than the movement of the external energy of the Lord. Purport. The living entity's unlawful desire to become one with the Lord in every respect is the root cause of the entire material manifestation. For otherwise, the Lord has no need to create such a manifestation, even for His pastimes. The conditioned soul, under the spell of the external energy of the Lord, falsely suffers many unfortunate incidents in material world. The Lord is the predominator of the external energy, Maya, whereas the living entity is predominated by the same Maya under the material condition. The false attempt of the living entity to occupy the predominating post of the Lord is the cause of his material bondage, and the conditioned soul's attempt to become one with the Lord is the last snare of Maya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please join us for Guru Pranati. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshtarine Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripa tadaham vande Shri Gurum Dina Taranam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances at the lotus feet of all the assembled devotees. And I am seeking your blessings and your engagement in this endeavor. And may Lord provide us the knowledge, the remembrance, and the ability so that we can spread the message in disciplic succession. And if there is any faults, it's all mine. And if there is any glories, it's to our spiritual masters. Hare Krishna. So now somebody could say, what were the doubts Vidur had when he is saying that all his doubts have been removed? So let me cover a little background. Basically, Maitreya Muni, sage Maitreya, he is describing the whole universal form of the Lord as how Lord appeared in this material universe. And that universal form is, again, it has unlimited hands and unlimited legs. And it is very clearly described by the Acharyas that that form is temporary. Lord manifests it so that it is here and then it again goes back. And at the end, what's remaining? Basically, it's showing material universe so that we, when we're looking at the material energy, the nature around us, we can remember the Lord. When we look at the trees, we can think, oh, those are the hairs of the Lord. You know, when we taste something, we can say, oh, this taste that I'm able to experience is because of the presence of water in it, because without the presence of water, you cannot taste anything. So Lord says, I'm the taste in water. So basically, water when mixed with some other element, that taste becomes prevalent. Water on its own is just a media for us to taste different elements. Similarly, when we smell something, so again, for tasting, it is said that Lord Varun, who is a demigod, Lord of the oceans, again, he enters Lord's tongue, and so we have the ability to taste. And we only have partial ability. That's also very important. So again, he's describing, Maitreya is describing, Sage Maitreya to Vidur, that Lord is appearing in this material universe, and those who do not have the eyes to see the Lord yet, they can look at the material universe and can see the Lord through that temporary manifestation and understand the amazing glories of the Lord. Yet at the same time, two important aspects are described, which is our relationship with the Lord. So when we remember this, it enables us through our material eyes to perceive the universal form of the Lord in this material world and appreciate and start to develop that relationship. Now, Lord is predominator. He is the Purusha. We are the marginal potency. We are the Prakriti. Jivera Surupaya Krishnera Nityadas Krishnera Tatastha Shakti Bhed Abhed Prakash. So what is our true dharma, true swarup, true nature? That we are eternal servant of Krishna. Yet at the same time, the biggest offense is when we try to dominate in this material world. Now in this regard, Maitreya Muni gives a very nice reflection that Lord has entered as Purusharthas into every, in the heart of every living entity, as well as spaces in every atom and spaces between the atoms. And so he is everywhere in his form as Karo Daksha Vishnu, the super soul. All the incarnations of the Lord are coming through the Garbhodaksha Vishnu and further through Shirodaksha Vishnu. So again, that is another aspect. He doesn't dive much into it, but he's identifying that how the various demigods are occupying different parts of the body. It is because of earth. The presence of earth makes us smell aroma. So that is the effect. Because of the air, Vayu, demigod appears. We can experience touch. We can just move our hand, and it's the moving of air that allows us to experience touch. It is because of the directions that we can hear the ether, the sound carried in ether. Because of the ether, we can experience sound vibrations through our ears. It is because of the sun, the light, that our eyes are useful. In the absence of sun, our eyes cannot see anything in the absence of light. Basically, the light that we see inside the house through bulbs and various other medias, they are just indirectly stored sun's energy that has been reflected and transformed in this manner. Now, Lord is predominator, we are predominated. How do we understand this aspect? So Achyutananda Maharaj, he actually had this doubt. And this was the time when Srila Prabhupada, he was at the Matchless Gift Center, and there was a small apartment that was there, and Srila Prabhupada was typing his third translation of Bhagavad Gita. Now, somebody could say, why did he have to do the third translation? Well, the first translation that he had prepared, the transcript, his wife sold it at the price of weight of paper to get some tea bags. And that was the point that Srila Prabhupada took to Vanaprastha. He went to Vrindavan and left his family. Now, when Srila Prabhupada leaves his family, we have to understand that he had grown-up sons who were able to carry out and take care of his wife. When second time he came to New York and he was staying with a gentleman who was still a drug addict. And one day he threw tantrums and things, and Srila Prabhupada's typewriter and transcript that was completely stolen. And Srila Prabhupada was inquiring. He could make out that this gentleman had taken it away. So, because he gave such a nice description of his house, somebody could come inside the room and take away the typewriter. And only a person who has done it can give that explanation, Srila Prabhupada explains. So now he had to do the third translation. And his typewriter, slowly doing this translation, Achyutananda Maharaj, he was still new, he was not yet initiated. He came to Srila Prabhupada. And at that time, it was very interestingly, there was another personality who was sitting, and who was basically a professor at North Carolina, and he was referring that I give up this world. I'm ready to give up this world. Srila Prabhupada looked at him and he said, this world never belonged to you. How can you give it up? Right? So again, sometimes we have this tendency, I'll give up everything. Well, you never owned anything. How can you give something you never owned? This is a common misconception. This is the influence of Maya. Sometimes we have this thought. Only if I had the opportunity, if I had not taken to devotional service, I would have been the emperor of planet Earth. Sometimes people give this kind of explanation, some variation of this. In reality, the biggest boon that we get is devotional service, bhakti yoga. So when Achyutananda Maharaj, he wanted to understand, how is it possible that Krishna would create material energy which causes so much suffering to his dear sons and daughters, the living entities? And he was perplexed with this thought, how could Krishna create something like this? Maya, external energy, so painful. The only two characteristics Maya has is it is temporary and it is place of misery. Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. Ashashvatam is temporary and dukh alay, basically a place of misery. Alay refers to the storehouse of. So if you go to a restaurant in India, we call it bhojan alay. Bhojan means food, Ala is a house where you can easily get food. So he was perplexed and he paid obeisance to Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada looked at him and he said, "Well, do you see any clouds on the sun?" He's like, "No, there cannot be clouds on the sun because sun is so hot. Clouds would dissipate immediately." But it was because of the sun that the water on earth, it evaporates and creates clouds on earth. And earth may become covered with clouds because of the effect of sun. Yet at the same time, there cannot be any cloud on sun. So the trees, they get nourishment through rain. Can there be rain on sun? Of course not. But the trees, they experience rain. The fruits and vegetables, they grow because of the water that comes through rain and through the streams, which ultimately comes through the water cycle. And there cannot be any of those occurrences on sun. So similarly, Krishna can do things and he will not be covered by Maya, but at the same time, he can create something that may have the effect. But then, one important aspect that Srila Prabhupada hinted, he did not give, because sometimes this is the quality of a great Acharya. He gives you the tip, and now you go and explore it, and suddenly you realize you have just discovered a whole new universe. The world does not look like the same as you used to see it before. That was the change in the perception of His Holiness Chaitanya Maharaj. And he was completely taken aback by this explanation. He realized that how for granted we have taken this Mother Nature. Mother Nature, like in the second verse, it is very nicely described that, disturbances of the conditioned soul have no other basis than the movement of the external energy of the Lord. When you hear this, read this statement was translated by Srila Prabhupada, you would think that material energy moves on its own. But in reality, material energy is inert by nature. On its own, it cannot do anything. It needs an external force, an external entity to move it. Right? A stone, unless moved, will stay where it is. It is the influence of some external energy, right? And it could be the influence of a demigod, it could be influence, of course, ultimately it is influence of Krishna, but at the same time, Krishna has he has empowered or given free will as well as empowerment to different type of living entities. Thank you, Prabhu, for capturing. That's very important. So it has to be some external person. And Srila Prabhupada constantly challenged the scientists on this aspect of that world just appeared from somewhere. In reality, when the Big Bang theory was proposed, it was actually proposed by a person who was a Catholic priest. And the whole church was celebrating this. This is showing that there has to be a greater entity who's the cause of generation of everything. For the first instance, scientists accepted it, but then they realized, wait a minute, they fell into the trap of religionists, the spiritualists, and then they started opposing it and tried to make fun of those aspects. And they tried to give different theories. So we understand from Bhagavatam how the material universe was created, how pradhana energy was triggered, how time, stirred the three modes of material nature and 24 elements. Of course, Lord appeared and he entered into the 23 elements as described in the previous chapter. And so forth, the material universe is, the universal form is described so that we can see the Lord in this universe. The rivers like the, blood flowing in his veins of the universal form I'm referring to. So this gives us the ability to see Krishna when we do not have the spiritual eyes to see him as such. But at the same time, we also have to understand that there are very important aspects. So Vidu's inquiry was trying to understand how could supersoul be present in the same body as the living entity. So Sage Maitreya had said that Lord enters in the heart of every living entity. So that means in the body, embodied living entity has super soul, and super soul is so close to the soul, the living entity, that even before the living entity can express its desires to the senses to enact out, super soul knows it so fast, so quickly. And acharyas give the explanation of two birds on a tree. One bird is trying to go higher branches to lower branches to experience different type of fruits. And these fruits are nothing but distress and happiness. And the other bird is just waiting patiently for the first bird to turn back. And who's this second bird referred to as the super soul? And the first bird is us, the living entities. And in reality, we saw the example of sun, the example of clouds. However, our perception is when we go on a cloudy day, somebody says, is the sun out? We say, no, the sun is not out. Well, the sun is out. All you have to do is go above the clouds and you can see the sun. But our vision thinks that this body, which is like a cloud, is stopping us to see the real self that we are. And that's why we need the ability to rise above the clouds. Just like if you take a plane and it goes above the clouds and you say, wow, the clouds at the bottom, and I can see between the clouds if there's gap, that there's land and different types of rivers and other things at the bottom, on earth, and there's beautiful sun shining up. When we look from that perspective, that means we have to rise above the clouds. We have to rise above the three modes of material nature, the 8 elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. Now I raise different fingers. You may wonder why. Why am I raising three different fingers? Earth, every time we say solid, it's referring to earth. Every time a kid says, I have to go and take a leak, it's referring to water. Every time we become angry, this fiery finger rises up. And every time, we have to do some special inauguration, then the air finger, this is the finger that's used. And then the largest is ether. The largest finger represents ether. In this way, we can see they are represented in our very being. We can see the 5 elements. And then we know mind, intelligence, and false ego. So these 8 elements, the 5 elements, cause of the gross body, and then the subtle elements. The mind is thinking, I am a man, or I am a woman, and I am young man, I am an old man, I am an American, and so forth. Trying to put different designations to the body and thinking that's our identity. No, our identity is one and simple. We are eternal servant of Krishna. And whatever we have received, just like this body, we have to engage in the service of Krishna for his pleasure. So when we look from that perspective, it is also very important for us to understand this vicious cycle of material energy. How is the living entity getting entrapped? And Vidur's inquiry was, well, how is it possible that the living entity is under the influence of Maya while the super soul is not? They're in the same body. They're just right next to each other. How could it be possible? And Maitreya Muni, he gives a very clear example that the Lord is transcendental to the 3 modes of material nature. He's always above the clouds. We are the ones below the clouds thinking that there is no sun. But Lord can see everything as it is. He is the Lord of the 3 modes of material nature, while we are accepting, even though we are superior to the 3 modes of material nature, we are accepting and becoming subservient. It's like a man is holding on to a tree and telling the tree to leave him. Oh, tree, leave me, leave me. But he's clutching onto the tree more and more. That's our state. We are clutching onto Maya. We are clutching onto the different designation, aham mameti, and which is causing us to do punah charvit charvanam. So we are chewing the chewed because of this influence that I am this body and everything around this body is mine. And in Nectar of Devotion, and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu again, Srila Rupa Goswami very nicely described that this is the extension how we think. And Srila Prabhupada further in Nectar of Devotion, which is summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he is showing us when we are born, we immediately identify ourselves as babies of our parents. We build that bodily relationship. little older, we start to build relation with our siblings and our relatives, and suddenly we start building a relation with the society and so forth. It just expands, and various kind of isms start to come in, and like nationalism, socialism, communism, capitalism, and all these factors just make us go deeper and deeper into the quicksand, and we forget that actually what our true nature is, because we are so much covered by so many layers of clouds. It is very difficult for us to see our true nature. And that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made the process very simple. And this is where Metta also reveals to Vidwan Vidur at this point that Lord is transcendental to the three modes of material nature. He is the enjoyer, he is the Purusha. We are the Prakriti. And the energy will always be under the control of Purusha. Then second aspect was, how could, if we are energies of the Lord, how could energies act differently than what Purusha desires? And that is given by the free will. Lord has given us free will because he doesn't want us to act like robot. He wants us to have loving exchange. As a father would like to have a loving exchange with his son, that's the kind of loving exchange that has been seen. And we may leave the Lord, but Lord never leaves us. So when we look from that perspective, things are very clear. So in Vidu's inquiry, I want to just cover. So I covered the sun and the cloud analogy. There is also another analogy of Srila Prabhupada used to give, the analogy of iron and fire. If you put iron in touch with fire, if you put an iron rod, it becomes red hot. And it is as good as fire. If you touch it anywhere, it will generate fire from that. So when we are in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, when we are engaged in devotional service, then we are transcendental to the three modes of material nature, and we are at the divine platform. So when we are engaging in devotional service, we are the divine platform. But when we are not engaging, that's the state that the iron rod is cold, and it doesn't have the potency of fire, which is the divine quality. So that's another analogy Srila Prabhupada gives. Now, sometimes people have what is the solution? If all this is happening, what is the possibility that I can overcome this state? And this is where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the 8 verses, Shishtashtaka. Cheto darpana majanam bhavamaha davagni nirvapanam. In the very beginning itself, he has actually given us the solution. Cheto darpana majanam. So we clean. This is the influence of the chanting of the holy name. Chanting of the holy name is so potent that by taking to the chanting of the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, we can clean the dust on the mirror of our heart, and then when a mirror is clean, then a person can see his or her reflection very clearly. So similarly, when we clear up the clouds, then we can see the sun very clearly. And that is the influence of the chanting of the holy name. Yet at the same time, Maya is very strong. Srila Prabhupada in the purport, as we covered today, it is said that Maya has its final snare. It wants to make the living entity believe that the living entity can become God by merging into the Brahman. Now, Brahman is, of course, above the 3 modes of material nature, no doubt. But who takes to merging into Brahman, the Sayujya Mukti? Those who are frustrated with the material sufferings. That means they want to become Shunya. But we don't want to become Shunya. Our nature is Anand Bhaya Abhyasat. We are constantly seeking to experience joy. We want to experience bliss. We want to be happy. That's our nature. Our nature is to seek out happiness. But in Brahman, there is no happiness. It only has a Sat feature, that it is eternal. It doesn't have the Chit feature, which is knowledge, and it definitely doesn't have the Ananda, which is the spiritual bliss. factor. But we are looking for that spiritual place. So we have to have all three factors, Satchidanand Vigraha. And who is that? Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karana. So it is only Krishna who is Satchidananda. And when we engage in service of Lord Krishna, then only we can experience spiritual bliss. So understanding that we don't want to be at the level of Shunya, at the level of Sayujya Mukti, emerging into Brahman, thinking that we'll become God, but in reality, Srila Prabhupada said that those who merge, they finally come down because they are able to see material energy in action and they feel they can still lord over material energy and they fall down because there is no activity and we are active beings by our very nature. So we definitely don't want to fall victim of that snare of Maya. And in reality, the 6 characteristics of devotional service, one of them is that we delight in not just Sayujya, but all kind of liberation. We want to just serve Krishna. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he sets a very nice example. It doesn't matter, even he's saying, even if I'm born, as a worm in a stool, please, my dear Lord, keep me engaged in your devotional service. That is the mood of a bhakta. That is the mood of a devotee, that we want to always be in contact with Krishna. We want to be always just like a rod, iron rod wants to be in contact with fire and is as potent as fire. That would be our state. So Lord is Atma Ramashcha. Again, I was about to say Atma Ram verse, but then that referred to the Munio. But Lord is also Atma Ram. Atma Ramasya Munda Nirgante Apu Kurame Kuruvanti Ahatu Kim Bhaktim Itham Bhuta Guno Hari. So it is said that those who are Atma Rams, who are rejoicing within themselves, those Munis, those great personalities, even they are engaged in devotional service, and that is the potency of the Lord, that He even attracts them. Now, somebody can say, these are nice explanations, but if you are looking at the various analogies that Srila Prabhupada gives, I can keep giving you more analogies all day long. Srila Prabhupada gives so many analogies. He gives the analogy of iron filings and magnet. So, when you have iron filings in the small pieces of iron, you use the magnet, they will immediately get attracted to the magnet. But if the same iron filings are covered by dust or rust, they won't get attracted to the magnet. And this dust and rust is, what is it representing? Maya. And what needs to happen is that we have to remove this dust and rust from the iron filings, and then we can eventually become attached. And we can still, become attracted to Krishna, just like iron filings become attracted to the magnet. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of, a rich man's son. He has forgotten that he's a rich man's son. He is in tattered clothes as a beggar, going from one place to another, trying to find a way to live. But at the same time, if somebody knows him to be the son of a great personality and reawakens his consciousness, makes him realize that he is actually the son of a rich person and he can go back to his father's place and carry out his duties as a son, he can be rich as well. And we are the sons and daughters of the richest personality in the whole universe, right? Krishna, he is the proprietor. Bhoktaram yagatapasam sarvalok maheshwaram surhidam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. So just to attain peace, this peace formula verse 5.29 is where Srila Prabhupada is, he's revealing to us in translation that the only beneficiary of all our activities, yagya tapasam, all our sacrifices, all our austerities and other activities, is Lord Shri Krishna. So everything should be done for his pleasure, sam siddhir haritoshanam. For his satisfaction we should act. And he is the Sarvalok Maheshwaram. He is the supreme proprietor of all material and spiritual universes. So when we look from those perspectives, we get to realize that we, in this particular case, is in a dream. And what may look like to be a long time to us You would be amazed to hear the whole lifetime of Brahma only accounts for half the breath of Mahavishnu. So Krishna has only taken a few breaths and then we are back home. Somebody could say it that way, yes. Sanatana Goswami in Bhagavatamrita, as he's describing that Krishna is missing Gopakumar. As soon as he sees Gopakumar, he embraces. And he was like, I'm missing you. It's not that Krishna had been missing him for many days. It's just that on that day, Gopakumar could not come because he had fallen to the material universe. And in short time, he came back to Krishna. So it was not that Krishna completely missed him for many days. It was a very small time for Krishna. In the spiritual world, the time factor, it doesn't exist, yes, by his absence. But in reality, when we are looking for Mahavishnu's breath, the moment he exhales and the moment he inhales, that's the lifetime of a Brahma. Now you could say the one he exhaled, the first is the last one coming in. So that lifespan of Brahma is many times more than the lifetime of our Brahma, because we are one of the later, last universes which are created. We are one of the small universes. They are Brahmas who have hundreds of thousands of heads so that they can manage the affairs of those large universes. So here we are talking about all these wonderful aspects that Maitri has revealed, and Vidur is filling. Vidyate hidayghante chidyante sarva samshaya shiyante chayesha karmani drashta evatmanishware. There's this verse in the first canto by Sutta Goswami. He is revealing on the spiritual path when one is progressing, then all his hidaya ganthis, so the knots in the hearts are completely cut into pieces. And samshaya, the doubts, whatever doubts one has, they're completely eliminated, completely destroyed. And shiyante chai esha karmani. So all these fruitive activities immediately stop. They terminate, and only activities that a living entity starts engaging in from this point onward are spiritual activities. Drashta evat manishware. Now, this last phrase is the most misunderstood phrase in this series of verses, because what it says is drashta, so one sees evatma, oneself, as Ishvara. As Ishvara. So, this Ishvara doesn't mean that we have become same as Krishna. No, we have not become God. Yes, we become godly and we become Goswami. So again, the senses. We are the Ishwaras of the senses that we have. So again, the 11 senses are being talked about. 5 Gyanendriyas, 5 Kamendriyas, and the mind as the king of all these senses. Gyanendriyas are, of course, ears to hear, and we talked about this. It is because of ether that all directions enter and we can hear through the ears. So we need the sense objects as well for the ears to be useful. If there is no sound, if there is no ether, the use of ear becomes useless. Again, you cannot use them. It is the taste of water by which our tongue can taste different items. So again, this is Gyanendriyas. These are knowledge acquiring senses. Because of earth, we can smell different aromas. So we need the sense object presence as well. And then our nose is useful because it can smell aromas. Because of light, our eyes can see, right? So that's the aspect of fire. So we need fire, which dissipates light. And the touch is because of air. And then we have 5 working senses, 2 hands, 2 legs, our speech, as well as our genitals and anus. So those are also constantly carrying out various activities. So we acquire knowledge with 5 senses, we perform various activities with other 5 senses, and the mind is the one that is the reins controlling these senses. But above mind is intelligence, and above intelligence is the soul, and the soul now becomes Ishvara of the mind and the senses. So that has been explained of intelligence, mind, and senses. We do not become God, but we can become godly. And Srila Prabhupada gives a beautiful example that why want to become God when you can become greater than God? He's giving the example of Yashoda Mai, who is binding Krishna, at times chastising Krishna. Nanda Baba, he's asking Krishna to bring his slippers, and Krishna picks up the slippers and puts it on his head as he's bringing them. These are the devotees of the Lord, the gopis. They are saying, Krishna, I'll give you some sweet, dance, dance. And Krishna dances like a puppet just to get some sweets. Everything already belongs to Krishna, but Krishna is looking for that love, that loving exchange, that reciprocation. And this is a great opportunity. Through devotional service, when we engage our senses, we get purified. Now, sometimes people talk about, yes, but what was the cause of our fall down? Well, the cause of the fall down, of course, we talked about Maya. We got attracted to Maya. But somebody could say, how did we get attracted to Maya? Krishna explains this very nicely in Bhagavad Gita. Dhyayate vishyan pumsa sangashte shupajayate sanga sanjayate kamat kamat krodho vijayate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammoha smriti brahmasat smriti brahmasat buddhinasho buddhinashat vinashyati dhyayate vishyan pumsa. When I'm constantly meditating on a sense object, Sangas se tupajayate. We develop attachment to those sense objects. Sanga sanjayate kama. From that attachment comes lust, kama. Kama at krodho vijayate. Now from this lust, anger arises. Now somebody could say, wait a minute, if I get the object, why should I be angry? The interesting aspect is if you get something that you wanted, now you want more of it. Because it's like pouring ghee into fire and expecting the fire to die out. But fire doesn't die out, it becomes more strong to the point that actually it becomes out of control. So that fire is represented as krodha. It is just getting building up. When it becomes out of control, then it appears as an outburst of kama to krodha. So again, krodha bhavati sammohat. Sammoha smriti bhavsat. From krodha, illusion arises. We start to see things around us and thinking ourselves to be the controller of different things. And our memory gets bewildered. When our memory gets bewildered, sammohat, smriti bhamsat, buddhi nashat vinashyati. Our intelligence is lost, and thus one is completely lost to the material energy. Material energy is actually carrying out a thankless duty to Lord Krishna, making sure that only one who has taken to devotional service, who has taken to the path of transcendental Krishna consciousness, again, Krishna consciousness is transcendental, again, this transcendental path to Krishna consciousness with no self-interest, with no interruptions, constantly engaging, that person can approach Krishna. And this is paramount when we are in the association of devotees, when we are at a dham. So when we are at a dham in the association of devotees, engaging in devotional service, it becomes spontaneous. And thus we can easily attain perfection. So we have to make an endeavor ourselves to make choice when we are looking to act. Look at your act on a daily basis. And this is something we used to do back in school, Astachal. At the sunset time, we would all gather together and, looking at the sun that is setting. And nobody, worships the sun when it is setting. They worship the sun when it is rising. Setting time, when they look at the sun, then you look at what did I do throughout the day? And what was the inspiration? What were the motivations of those activities were there? And if those activities were motivated by my own self-interest, then how I am actually degrading myself. I am actually pushing myself way under the clouds while I'm supposed to be above the clouds. And try to identify 2 to 3 improvements and set new goals for the next day. That way, every day and every moment is a chance for improvement. We were back in school and we had to do this astachal activity every day. This meditation, what did I do today? What was useful? What was useless? And what was the cause of different activities? So that we can reflect on making further improvements. We were in student life, so we always think from an academic perspective, from the sports perspective, extracurricular perspective. But now I'm doing the same activities with my family, and I'm seeing amazing improvements, not just in myself, it's a family as a whole, my children, my wife, myself. We all, at the end of the day, talk about what kind of devotional service were we engaged in. And who are the amazing devotees like Satya Prabhu here who helped us engage in these kind of activities? How grateful we are for such devotees who are reaching out and giving us an opportunity to spread the message of Srila Prabhupada, to spread the message of, Lord Krishna and his devotees and the acharyas. And we are eternally grateful for devotees like Satya Prabhu, for devotees like Madhvacharya Prabhu, for devotees like, Braj Bihari Prabhu and so many others. And of course, my dance partner, Anuttama Prabhu. This is the other Anuttama, not the GBC one. So again, there are so many opportunities, and we have to be grateful for every opportunity because Lord's mercy flow through his devotees. And this path of being delivered is, I talked about Vidyata Hidaya Gantis. So that is like when you are at the level of bhav. How do we rise from the level of Shraddha, having little faith, to that level of bhav and prema? So this is given very nicely in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Adho Shraddha tatha sadhu sango atha bhajan kriya tatho anartha nivrati sthat tato nishta ruchis tatha atha shaktis tato bhavas tatha prema dhanchati sadhaka namayam prema pradurbhave bhavet kramaha. From Shraddha, we get sadhu sangha. Sadhu Sangha, again, we follow the process, take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. We are engaged in bhajan kriya, devotional service. Bhaj actually is more related to devotion than worship. Worship is just one of the process of the 9 processes in devotional service. And from bhajan kriya, anartha nivriti, all unwanted things, they drive away. And one comes to the level of nishtha, which is stronger faith. Then comes ruchi, then comes asakti, bhava, and finally prema. And what are the effects of these aspects, if somebody could ask? Then Sutta Goswami is revealing this to the sages at Namacharya. Tada rajastamo bhava kama lobhadayaschaye chetyatyaranaviddham stitam satve prasiddhati. So when we are engaged in devotional service, we come to the level of nishtha, because bhajan kya anatnivrisat nishtha. So this is established in the hearts, and the effects of the nature's mode of passion ignorance, those anartha nivriti is happening, such as lust, desire, and hankering, they're disappearing from the heart. And so we become established in the mode of goodness. Some siddhi, sthitam satve prasiddhati. Evam prasannam manaso bhagavad bhakti yogatah bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. So what does this do when we are in the mode of goodness? When we are established in the mode of pure goodness, so again we are transcendental to the 3 modes of material nature, our mind gets enlivened with the contact with devotional service to the Lord, because this is all about sambandh, our relationship with Lord Krishna. He is the Purusha, we are the Prakriti, we are the energy, he is the energetic, he is the enjoyer, we are the enjoyed, and the process is, Abhideya is devotional service, the process of devotional service through which we actually reawaken our relationship, enliven, refresh our relationship with the Supreme Lord, and of course, Sambandh, Abhideya, Prayojana, coming to the level of love, requires us to gain positive knowledge by the mercy of the Lord. So we get this scientific knowledge, Srila Prabhupada gives, and we all have done in our school time the science projects, where you have the set of apparatus, a hypothesis, you carry out a process, and then you record your observations and come to a conclusion. So in this case, our very body and everything that's around us, the facilities, they are the part of the apparatus. Devotional service is the process. And we carry out this devotional service on this apparatus and finally realize that we are becoming spiritualized. That is the scientific knowledge. That's the realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we come to the level of liberation from all material association, which means we are in spiritual association. And that is when Vidyate Hridayagante Chidyante Sarva Samshaya Kshiyante Chaesha Karmani Dashta Evatmanishvare. And that is when we have cut off all the knots by the mercy of Krishna, by the mercy of Guru, by the mercy of Sadhu, Sadhu, Guru, and Shastra. And we are able to realize that prasanna manaso, we are coming to that unalloyed devotional service, and we become not Godas, not the servant of our senses, but Goswami. So very simply, the process of from Shraddha to Prem has been revealed in Srimad Bhagavatam as well through these verses. Hare Krishna. Is there any further question? Again, I do want to share quickly the various aspects I covered today. I covered various analogies. I covered the sun and cloud analogy, the iron and fire analogy. There's a prisoner and king analogy as well, the golden ladders, but we are running out of time, so that may not be. The magnet and iron filings analogy, and Srila Prabhupada's his own examples, and as how we belong to the richest personality in the whole universe, and but we have forgotten our true identity, and thus we are wandering in this material world like beggars. That particular analogy I have also covered. And Lord, He never forgets. We may forget Krishna, but Krishna never forgets us. And so, as soon as the bird who's trying to enjoy different kind of fruits of happiness and distress on this tree of material universe turns back to the other bird who's waiting, the other bird immediately smiles and reciprocates. So Krishna immediately reciprocates. And, he immediately seeks out to make sure that things, we are able to come back. He is more eager to take us back than we are eager to go back. And Bhakti Yoga is the direct way and the most easiest and simplest way. And among the various activities of Bhakti Yoga, chanting of the holiness is the best way to take to Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. If there is any question or comments, please share. Over to you, Sadhu Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this wonderful Krishna Katha shared with us today. You touched on so many very important themes, and I believe devotees may have some questions or reflections to ask or share. And if you do, please indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to ask your question or to share your reflections. Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, I have heard that when a particular soul tries to perform devotional service and does not even become perfect enough to go back home, back to Godhead, he sometimes promoted to join the Lord in his pastimes. So in that case, Yamaraj had the opportunity to become Vidura and took very, very important role in Lord Krishna's pastimes. Now, at the end of the day, when Krishna was done with his pastimes, Vidura had to go back and assume his position back from Aryama. Now, my question is, why does he have to go back after he had had such an association with the Lord? Why wouldn't he go back to the spiritual world?
Hare Krishna, Satya Prabhu, very important.
Hare Krishna.
So let's look at the background. Little background is important to be able to understand this whole situation. Yamraj is one of the 12 Mahajanas. Swayambhu, Shambhu, and so forth. And he says, Vayam, I am also. This is in the 6th canto, chapter 3. Sambhu Nado Shambhu Kumaro Kapilo Manu Prahlado Janako Bhishmo Bali Vaya Sakir Vayam. So he is listing all these 12 Mahajanas. He's saying, I am the last one, right? He's one of the Mahajanas. However, there is a personality by the name as Mandukya Muni, also known as Mandavya Muni. And this incident that I'm going to cover is given in Markandeya Puran. Sometimes people misunderstand that we're talking about Mandukya Muni. They say Markandeya Muni had to suffer this. No, it was Mandukya Muni. When once it just so happens, some thieves that had stolen treasury from the king's treasure house, and they were running away, and they knew that they will get caught, so they kept that treasure in the hut of Mandukya Muni. And so when the soldiers, they caught the thieves, they also caught the sage. And they were pierced with the lance. That was the punishment. And the lance was pierced through the body, from the anus all the way to the head. So it was pierced, but because of the yogic power of Mandukya Muni, he did not die. He was able to sustain the pain, and the pain was like ever growing. And he had this doubt, why am I suffering with such a punishment of a lance, pierced through my body in this way? So he goes to Yamraj. Yamraj gets up, welcomes him, worships him, gives him a nice seat, and says, it is so nice, sage, that you have come. How can I serve you? And says that, what is the cause of this lance that's going through my body? It is very painful. So Yamraj looks at his secretary. Who is his secretary? Chitragupta, one who has all the secret pictures of our activities. And the account is given that when you were a child, you actually pierced the body of an ant with a straw. And that is the reaction. This is the reaction of that action you performed. Now, Mandukya Muni, hearing this, he becomes angry. He says, I was a child. I was ignorant. I didn't know what's what. And you gave me such a big punishment. That is like you're acting like a fool, ignorant person. You become a Shudra. Because a Shudra is sometimes referred to as an ignorant person, mode of ignorance. So Yamraj accepted that statement as is. And so he is born as Vidura, a maidservant, right? A maidservant's son. Yet at the same time, who is his father? Krishna Dvaipanya Vyasdev, biological father. So we also have to understand he is, even though a Shudra born, son of Vyasdev. And he has to overcome this curse, and Lord Krishna engages the Mahajanas in his pastimes. And so he is there, and he is suffering so much, seeing the Pandavas suffer so much. And he's trying to deliver his eldest brother, who's Dhritarashtra, who's born blind, as well as who's religiously or spiritually blind as well. And Duryodhana causes him to leave the kingdom, which was just fortunate for him, because if he had not left the kingdom, getting upset and leaving his weapons at the doorstep of the Dhritarashtra's palace, he would have been participating in Kurukshetra. And if he had died at Kurukshetra, he would have definitely gone back home, back to Godhead. But then the condition would be, if he had gone back home, back to Godhead, who would deliver us fallen souls? Because we need a Yamraj to rule over the Yamlok to make that justified carrying out of duty. And he is a personality, of course, he is son of Vivaswan. So he is a perfect personality who has to finish his term as Yamraj at that position. He's also Dharmraj. So again, that's also another position he has. And those are very important activities. And what does a devotee want? Always engage in Lord's service. It's not what kind of service it is. So yes, he may be carrying out various activities in this material world, but he is on a spiritual platform as a Mahajana. And he's constantly engaged in Lord's service. Yes, he becomes very happy When materialists like his Yamdutas, the messengers of death, they start talking about transcendental subject matter, as it happened in the case of Ajamil, when they saw Vishwaduta and they came and like, we saw, these four amazing personalities. And Yamraj knew the mercy of the Lord. And he's asking for forgiveness, but in his heart he's smiling that I get to do this Bhagavad Katha among this most materialistic place, which is Yam Loka, where everyone is just deriving pleasure by beating the prisoners. Can you imagine? Means again, a Vaishnava by nature is per dukkha dukhi and per sukha sukhi. If somebody is happy, Vaishnavas become happy, and someone is in distress, Vaishnava become they fall in distress. Prahlad Maharaj is a very good example of this. He gives this example. I'm worried about these rascals and fools. They should go back home, back to Godhead, but they are forgetting their prescribed duties. And thus they are suffering in this material world. So Yamraj is also doing a thankless job of rectifying us. He is actually taking care of those reactions of various bad karmas, the sinful activities, impious activities that we have performed in the human form of life, and so many lives, so that we can again start our journey and finally get an opportunity to come to another human form of life where we can take to devotional service. So he's doing his service, and that service is on transcendental platform. To our eyes, it may appear to be material activity or in material universe, but we have to also understand that Dhruv Lok is also in this material universe, but Dhruv Lok has a Shwetadeep, the ocean of milk, where Lord Vishnu is also residing. That's a spiritual world, a spiritual planet within this material world. And all our temples, they are part of the spiritual world too. Now, sometimes in the spiritual world, material consciousness comes in and may show its effect, but we have to always seek out, we have to be Hamsas. Hamsa has this quality of separating water away from milk. It can, if you mix water and milk together and give it to a swan, Hamsa, it can drink away the milk and leave the water behind. That is a quality being proven time and again. So we have to just take to the spiritual aspect and ignore the material aspects of things. Lord Krishna, such a Vigraha form, his deity, he's already there in every temple. But people come in and some think of it as an idol, some think it's made up of stone. But a devotee says that Supreme Lord is present in front of me and seeks to engage in service for the pleasure of the Lordship. Hare Krishna Prabhu, does that answer your question?
Oh, yes, very much. Yeah. I asked the question because even though I pray to always engage in the service of the Lord, but I want to do it in the spiritual world. I don't want to do it in the material world. So based on that, I was thinking, oh, Yamaraj would also like to go back to the spiritual world, but it's very well understood. Thank you so much.
There is also, Acharyas have revealed one more aspect. I just want to throw this out as well. This is a very important one. Before we go back home, back to Godhead, Lord engages us in a service that truly tests us. The Pandavas are a good example of that. Pandavas, they were born as princesses, and who are their biological fathers? Indra, the king of the demigods, Vayu, the demigod of air, right? Bhima is the son of Vayu. And we have Nakul and Sahadev, sons of Ashwini Kumars. We have Yudhishthir, son of Dharmraj himself. Yet at the same time, how much did they suffer? And Mother Kunti, Queen Kunti, how much did she suffer? But then they went back home, back to Godhead. So Lord sometimes wants to glorify his devotees by showing that devotees, when they're in distress, they still stay determined. Gives us the hope to never leave the lotus feet of the Lordship. So that, because we are getting prepared not just to go back home, we are getting prepared to have one last life in the form of devotee of the Lordship, where we'll have to suffer so intensely, so as others will feel that there is hope for them. And that Lord does to glorify us. Lord did that to Bali Maharaj to glorify Bali Maharaj. And Bali Maharaj is still in the material universe. But remember, Vaman Dev was his gatekeeper. Hare Krishna. So why try to become God when we can become greater than God by us? Hare Krishna.
See, this this blue boy Krishna is oh my God. I mean, he's the supreme personality of Godhead. Whether we accept it or not, he's the supreme personality of Godhead. Is the predominating, and we are the predominated. So he can do whatever he wants to do.
Yes.
But it's sometimes, if not always, quite difficult to understand this Krishna, because I do not see how Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has all the power to make whatever happens, and still allows his beloved devotees to go through so much troubles. Like you just talked about the Pandavas and even our own Srila Prabhupada. Now, it sometimes gets me, I don't know exactly the right word to use, because I can't do anything with Krishna, but I just can't understand why I've been saying this so many times. So if others have heard me, please allow me for making myself so monotonous. But I truly and honestly feel so much pain when I think of how Lord Krishna allowed Srila Prabhupada to struggle the way he did, when he knows that he's just here to represent him. And yet he allowed him to go through so much suffering. And sometimes when I see how lots of the beloved sons and daughters of Krishna suffer, I sometimes think to myself, do I also want to suffer like that? If I don't want to suffer like that, then I don't have to become a serious devotee. Yet I want to become a serious devotee. So this dilemma is always on my mind. And I don't know if you have something to share on this point, but this Krishna is just too much. I'm sorry.
No, again, see, Krishna is Surya Sama Maya here in the Kara. Jahan Krishna Taha nahi Maya Radhikara. We all know this, but we don't realize it. Krishna is like the sun, right? And Maya is like the darkness. So when we talk about the pain and the suffering, that is to the material eyes. But the spiritual eyes is, this is service. Srila Prabhupada was fully surrendering to Krishna, just like Gajendra. He fully surrendered to Krishna. He picked up that lotus foot and he's saying, Namo Bhagavate Tasmai. So again, that's how the surrender happens. And it's very interesting that Gajendra is calling out and he's singing the prayers that he learned in his past life. Now, who gave him the ability? Krishna gave him the ability to remember his prayers when he was king in Dridimna and making those prayers every day when he had left his kingdom and was engaged in devotional service. And Krishna, brought that intelligence back. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matta smitir jnanam upohitam cha. Lord Krishna says, from me comes jnana, knowledge, remembrance, and even forgetfulness. So it is Krishna who is setting the example, showing his devotees suffering so much. But is the real devotee really suffering? No, the devotee is saying that there is hope for us. That Srila Prabhupada did all this for us. We should be so grateful. That Srila Prabhupada at the age of 69 years of, not a very young age, not even, little older, but really old. In 1965, he went on to Jalduta. He had 2 heart attacks. In his dream came Krishna himself rowing the boat. And when Jalduta came to Boston, the captain was surprised. He's like, he had never seen Atlantic so calm. That was the nature of Pacific, not Atlantic. Atlantic is always turbulent. Atlantic Ocean I'm referring to. And so Srila Prabhupada understood. And what does he say? Oh Lord, I am your puppet. Make me dance, make me dance, make me dance. That was his poem. Prayer to the lost sheep that I do not know who will take to your message. Because people out here are gross materialists. But I will dance as you like. So Lord Krishna is Swarat. He's completely independent, which means if we depend completely on Krishna's mercy, then he can show miracles. In the case of Pandavas also, even though they were suffering, they ended up becoming Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas. They became the emperor of the world. So much so that Parikshit Maharaj became emperor of the world. Now somebody could say, why did Parikshit Maharaj just 25 years of age? Why did he have to get a curse from a small child, Brahman child? You know, Shingi gave him the curse that in 7 days he will die by a snake bite. Why does he have to suffer? It is so that Srimad Bhagavatam can be spoken. So Srila Prabhupada came so that he can inaugurate Sankirtan movement again, because this was a prophecy. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made a prophecy that Narottam will be there. There was a prophecy that there will be a great general who will bring this Krishna consciousness to far and wide, to every town and village where Lord Chaitanya's name will be sung. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself made this prediction. Srila Prabhupada fulfilled it. And to fulfill it, he took so much pain, so that we become grateful to his efforts and surrender to the will of Krishna, just like Srila Prabhupada did. It gives us hope that we are in so much better state. I'm not 69. I'm not in a state as frail as Srila Prabhupada. I have, family who is also made up of Vaishnavas. They are constantly engaged in devotional service. I have so many facilities better. We can do so much better. There is a saying by the acharyas that the spiritual master may take good, which is like what they said, this is the pre-form of sugar. But the disciple, because of the facilities spiritual master provides, can become like a better sweet or sugar in this case. So we have that opportunity. Are we availing that opportunity? Are we realizing that we have that opportunity? Are we making effort in the right direction? That is the question we should ask ourselves every day. Hare Krishna. I know it was
Hare
even
Krishna.
heavier blow than what you expected.
Yeah, very much. Thank you. I'm just praying that I can have some love for Krishna.
Krishna has all the love for you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So, devotees, if anyone may have questions, comments, please, you may ask before we bring this to a final close. Hare Krishna. I see there are quite a number of new devotees, I believe. They followed you here. We appreciate your presence here, dear devotees. Thank you so much. Madhavan Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
All
Krishna.
grace unto your Lord. Thank you very much for giving us this lecture today. We so much appreciate. Just in connection with the Prabhu the last question. Sometimes they said it's severalized, so they describe them as the center of the hurricane. When you have the hurricane, there's a lot of movement around it. But at the center, it is fixed. So all the things we see as suffering, or all those material activities, they still remain unbewildered. But externally, we see them suffering and going through so many. So please, can you expatiate a little bit about that? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Madhavan Prabhu. Thank you so much for sharing. However, your voice was breaking up. Satya Prabhu, were you able to get the message?
Yeah, he was saying that like when we have hurricane,
Yes.
all around it there is so much turbulent force, but the base of the hurricane is kind of calm.
Yes.
So like what we see around our gurus and advanced devotees as suffering, that is the external we see. But the internal could be that they are very calm. And so if you could share some thoughts on what his understanding of
Yes.
how the acharyas, or like the pure devotees of the devotees, externally we see them suffering, but internally they may not be suffering.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much, Madhavan Prabhu, for asking this. And there are so many wonderful examples. I can just, acharyas show by their life, so many examples. I'll give the example of His Holiness Bhakti Tirth Maharaj. When his leg was amputated and he was on his last few days, with Radhanath Swami, there was Kirtan going on in his room. And he turned to Radhanath Swami and he said, "It just can't keep getting any better." So in a painful state, he was actually rejoicing. He was experiencing transcendental bliss. So externally to us, it may look like that he was in a suffering state, but his heart was on a different platform. When we are driving car on the road, we may see traffic lights. We may have to be stuck in that, rush hour and all. That is when we are on a material platform. On a spiritual platform, we are on a plane. And there's no traffic light for a plane. There's no suffering for the plane. The plane is just going through the air on its destination as fast as it could. Sometimes from the materialistic eyes, in the beginning, we may not really see it. So only way to see it is when we land on that plane, take to devotional service, follow their instructions. Then we can ride on the same plane and realize that these sufferings that are happening are just externally. There are many types of miseries comes, of course, the three forms of miseries we know: Adi Bhautik, Adi Devik, and Adhyatmik. Adi Bhautik is from other living entities. Adi Devik is from the, disturbances like hurricanes, tsunamis, and so forth, from the demigods. And Adhyatmik is from our own mind. And these Adhyatmiks are the ones that disturb us the most. They are like 99.999% of the miseries is what we create for ourselves. Our mind creates a mountain out of a mole. And we have to stop doing that and take to devotional service. It's very interesting. We were having this conversation that poverty is not a disqualification. Rather, Kunti says poverty is a qualification. She is referring to that Krishna, Aishwarya Sasamuni, that's the 6 opulences. Edhamana Madhapuman Nevarhatya Vidhatum Vai Twam Akinchana Gocharam. So she is referring that those who are born with higher opulences, higher birth, higher education, and so forth, these people, they become mad, become proud. Mad refers to becoming proud and mad and deluded. They cannot approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can easily be approached by an akinchana gochara. So a person who has nothing can easily approach. This is very interesting. What you just mentioned is actually distinguishes the materialist who has taken to God consciousness, some consciousness to approach God, versus a devotee, a disciple in disciplic succession. A bona fide devotee, again, a materialist or even a worshipper, goes to the God and goes to Krishna and says, "Give me this, give me that," asking for different things. It's like a trade exchange. Prahlad Maharaj, what does he say? "I'm not interested in any trade exchange, my dear Lord. I'm doing a selfless service. My service will not stop even if you stop reciprocating." While devotees, a disciple, a devotee, a Vaishnava, does not go to ask from God. He is asked of God. He wants God. See, he is not looking to get anything from God. He wants to own God. That is the quality. And that ownership comes through service. He wants to be the servant of the God. So he allows himself to be owned, and so the Lord allows himself to be owned. That's why devotional service is really achieved, pure devotional service, because Lord gets bought by the devotee. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bhakta Hassan, please you may unmute. Thank you for the answer, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Grace. Thank you so
Hare
much for
Krishna.
the please can you accept my respectful obeisances? All glory to Gurudev, all glory to Prabhupada, and all glory to the wonderful assembled devotees. Grace, my question is that I heard that as a devotee, you don't have to have a friend or you don't have to have enemy. You have to treat everybody. You don't have to partial to anybody. And how can neophyte like me to accept something like this? Because if we look at this world at this particular moment, a lot of things are going on and people are oppressing other people. People are going through anxiety and difficult times. And at the same time, if we look carefully, the people who are doing all these things, they are also doing what the nature wants them to do. Because they have to do this so that we will feel anxiety and we have to go through difficult times because of our karma. So how can somebody like me see such people like as not an enemy if they are making me feel anxiety or oppressed? If you can help me to understand that, please. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hassan Prabhu, thank you for asking this question. So again, in 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there's a beautiful verse. Yasmano dujte loko lokano dujte chaya harshamash bhayo dvege mukto yasa chame priya. Lord Krishna is describing the qualities of a devotee that makes him very dear to Lord Krishna. So these are the qualities. And one of the qualities, one who does not get disturbed by others and does not disturb others, and is on equipoised platform, whether it is rejoicing or distressful. And bhaya, in fearful state, and different kind of tough situations in life. So one who is calm at that particular point, this is a test Krishna is giving our way. And everyone is going through this test. All materialists, all devotees, everyone has to go through this test. Narayani Mata gives an example when she was talking about the mercenaries on this material world. How can I stay calm? Srila Prabhupada explained to her that you are fallen into an ocean. This material world is referred to as Sindhu, right? Bhava Mahasagar. So it is and in ocean there are so many waves that are hitting you. Will you just say, hey, ocean, all these waves, stop hitting me? No. You will continue to, try to swim. But even better than swim is, you ride on these ocean waves, which means you take to Krishna consciousness, which is the cruise line going through the ocean, and you get the ticket to join this cruise line by taking through the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra and the four regulative principles. And in due course of time, you will be lifted above the ocean so that you can come to that platform. Yes, when you are in the waters, that cruise line looks far away, but we have to understand that we have to make an effort to follow the processes and take to it. So it's not easy because in the beginning, but in the beginning also, one who has little faith takes to devotee association, accepts a spiritual master, continues on that path. So again, it has been described as Shraddha Tatha Sadhu Sangha Bhajad Kriya. And to be able to approach, this is what I was trying to remember earlier. We have to actually leave. There is a doctor's appointments shortly. Sorry about that. So we have to look at different situations, and our actions in what mode are we acting? Are we responding or are we reacting? If we have to make a pause between some action has come our way and what is going to be our response to that action. If you're going to immediately react, that is what is discouraged, because eye for an eye will drive the whole world blind. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we have to understand that we have to do our duties not out of fear, not even out of duty that I must do this, but out of love. And love knows no enemy. So it is at that platform, Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu, Mad Bhakti Labhate Param. Lord Krishna is saying that he is looking at everyone with equal vision, realizing that the super soul is in everyone's heart. And he is the one who has permitted them to act in a way that is looking negative to us. And this is where Krishna is testing me. How will I respond to this request? And what action of mine would please the Lordship? It doesn't mean that we become doormat. We have to leave that situation as well. Hare Krishna Prabhu, sorry, I have to leave early, but does that satisfy your?
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I don't want to take
Yes.
much of your time. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Bhakta Hassan. Thank you so much, His Grace Jiva Tattva Prabhu. And thank you to all assembled Vaishnava devotees and whoever may be listening to this on YouTube or later on. And at this point, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute. And we all chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker, His Grace, Shri Jiva Tattva Prabhu. Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Hare
Rama,
Hare. Shakalpatarebhyascha kripa sindhu bhavacha patanam pavanabhyo vaishnavabhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. All glories to His Grace Shri Jiva Tattva Prabhu ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada
Hare
ki
Hare
jai.
Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Ananta Koti